Hello, good afternoon everyone. My name is Aysegul and I'm a professor and as well as a researcher at Brookfield Sustainability Institute at George Brown College. And today I'd like to describe one of the research results that we have done together with Matt and a great team. We worked on understanding how we can transit the alternative energy sources in one of the critical sectors, which is logistics. So obviously there are many issues regarding with the climate change and the sectors, but I'd like to present today how and which dimensions are the most critical ones in terms of understanding the transition process of any kind of a sector actually. So typically there are different dimensions when you're thinking of these transition processes, but when you're speaking about a specific sector, there will be very critical dimensions we need to understand, and depending on the energy type that you would like to transit, you would like to see how the stakeholders involved within that transition process are critical and how they're going to perform. This is the agenda that I'd like to describe. Of course, we all know about the dilemma between climate change and logistics, but I'd like to go very quickly about the other side of the coin, which we always think that logistics is one of the sectors that contributes a lot to the climate change and that produces carbon dioxide emissions and GHG emissions. But there's also another part of the coin where logistics is also a victim of the climate change. And if there's a possibility of taking the approach of adaptive logistics instead of always accusing that sector, but how actually it is possible to talk about an adaptive logistics sector. And 5 dimensions that we have introduced in our research together with our stakeholder engagement process, which Matt has already described. We have been involving with other companies and many NGOs as well as academia and governmental sectors to understand this transition process in a big picture. And I'd like to provide you the top-line findings and insights for, of course, our friends and our sisters and brothers in Caribbean region. So I don't want to take time too much because I know that time is limited, but I'd like to provide you the links here. I always like to use the graphic representations and visualizations provided by NASA. And on the left-hand side, you can see, well, I provided the link. Sorry for that, the fonts are very small. I was planning to show it actually, but that actually is a typical climate anomaly in just 1 year regarding to the historical change. So if you click that link, you will see how our environment has really got depressed in the last 100 years. We all know about this reality, but still I have so many people asking me if it is real or not. Still, believe me, they ask this question, if climate change is real. So using data and visualization, I believe we have to convince some of the people, especially the people who are working in logistics sector or in other sectors as well. So yes, the data shows us the climate change is real, but also we have some sectors that affect really this climate change issue. So on the left-hand side, you can see that if logistics were a country, 12% of the carbon dioxide would place it third in the carbon dioxide emission league, just behind China and USA. So logistics, depending of course location, depending on where you go around the world, might change the situation, but still, globally speaking, logistics is one of the critical sectors that contribute a lot to the GHG emissions. However, the other side of the coin tells us another story, as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation. It is also a victim. And you can see some of the numbers that I provide here. For instance, 2 over 3% of the carbon dioxide emissions from the road freight transportation that comes from trucks and the commercial vehicles and so on, and 28% we observe a decrease in just last few years, especially after the pandemic. Yes, these numbers are correct, But also, we need to understand that the logistics has been vulnerable also. The sector is being under risk. And there are also, not in terms of economical-wise speaking, but also operational-wise speaking, there are serious risks associated with the climate change. On the right-hand side, I just tried to check the recent news for you before coming here, and I could see that in August 2023, according to a research company and a technology company who are working a lot on this sector, they have determined that in the Pacific Northwest, the trucking companies have spent an extra $1 million in fuel costs just because of the heat wave occurred. And similarly, these companies as well, similar companies in the Northeast, they spent an extra $4 million, American dollars, by the way, in just only 1 week during the June 2024, which is, I believe, a few months ago. So that's very critical and sad for us to see. And the reason why we don't understand and realize the reality of the climate change is that we don't have data, which I agree with the morning session. That's why this is also critical for us. Our research at that point came with understanding what are the alternative energy types that we can integrate to this logistics sector, and what are the main dimensions to consider, and what is the competitive landscape looks like. So we would like to have a test study, first of all. We can't analyze everything at the beginning, but this is one of the starting point. We wanted to consider the temperature-controlled products logistics. And we wanted to do a primary and secondary research altogether with a qualitative methodological approach dominantly, where we had some case studies, in-depth interviews with many fleet operators and other stakeholders within this sector, and also compiled a secondary research about the existing competitors. Apparently, hydrogen was considered, according to the data and the research we did, was one of the significant alternative energy that comes into mind, and I can share later with the interested ones about the statistics and the data. But these are the ones the most frequently known in the sector that started already interested in these transition process. And the 5 dimensions we wanted to analyze are first the product and inventory. Second is the operational and daily fleet operation-wise speaking. Third is the technology and how AI and the data analytics can be integrated into this transition process. Then we wanted to understand the safety, security, environmental risks, which I believe should be in every kind of alternative energy, including nuclear and all other types of energy transition processes, but also business models and human resources. So at the end of our research, I'd like to go very fast. Yes, we understood that all 4 types of categories in the temperature control products are very critical, especially after COVID-19. We have experienced more interest in logistics of transportation of the electrical components as well as pharmaceutical ones. So you need to consider all kinds of products in the lifespan of this sector. And in terms of the challenge to zero carbon, of course, we all know about these. There's an absence of infrastructure and lack of incentives, which is similar to other alternative energy transition process. However, within the current technology trends, we observed blockchain, meta-intelligence, and monitoring and hardware and software were very critical besides AI. AI was always in the agenda for sure, but hardware and software are the most critical ones if you would like to transit your energy system into a hydrogen one or any kind of an alternative renewable energy that you need to consider. And the interviews told us a very critical result, saying that decision optimization process for different types of trucks are actually different. So not all the same logistics sector trucks or or the types of the vehicles operate in the same way. So you need to have a tailored fit, actually, transition process design, where I believe our institute is really good at, preparing this kind of a design strategy around these transition processes, because you need to see the whole picture itself. And of course, it was very critical for us, the drivers, as well as the mechanics people were the most critical ones that you need to provide continuous education and learning in order to decrease their barriers in transition to these systems, because there's a huge fear and not a real awareness on this kind of an energy. But also in terms of AI, big data analytics, and all these technology components that we were not aware, but at the end of the research we could understand that there's a real problem in terms of the microprocessor problems right now, which will affect, I believe, all other transition processes, which we rely on all kinds of computer technology. So we need to find a way in order to make this transition process in a sustainable way. Otherwise, it's just going to be an invention, but it will stay over there. So these are the research results, but I also checked the Latin American and the Caribbean ecosystem and how actually our friends are, employing the hydrogen strategy over there. And I could see that these strategies are in place in 8 countries right now. And 4 countries, they have announced their strategies, but still in preparation. So I believe these are really good signs in order to see mutual, collaborations, because they also started to put this in their governmental policies. So, of course, it's a start right now, I believe, for all of us, but I believe it's really great opportunity for us. And these are just very small thought starters. For instance, what if the product, the data, was tokenized to enhance the supply chain in this whole fleet operation system? Or what if you could develop a weather forecasting model that will warn the truck or the fleet operation system in early advanced timing? Or what if the route planning was completely a different route planning that will take consideration of the climate change itself? So that's why there are different projects in our minds to go through, and we're really happy to collaborate in the coming future years. And you can reach to me or Matt Acimert here at the end of the presentation. We will be happy to discuss for mutual operations together. And thanks for your attention.